Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I am so thrilled that you are joining us today for our November, I can't believe that I'm saying November financial check-in with Fame. It's hard to believe that it's already November 1st, but we're thrilled that you're here today. I am excited to welcome our two speakers for today. But before I do that, I'm going to go through some housekeeping details. And first of all, introduce myself. My name is Mary Dyer, and I'm Financial Education Programs Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine. I'm actually traveling today, so I'm not at Fame. I'm in Kentucky, so I'm finding I'm a little bleary-eyed from travel. So thankfully, I got my title right this afternoon. But we're thrilled to have you here. Today's presentation is one that we are really excited about. We have brought Kate Levier from the Alfond Scholarship Foundation to talk about the Alfond Grant, and we've got Mary Pelletier from the Finance Authority of Maine to talk about NextGen. And the whole point of this presentation is to really talk about both programs and highlight the differences and highlight how the programs work together and how the Alfond Grant can help to power the NextGen savings as well. So really excited about that. This is part of a monthly series that we offer at Fame. It's our financial check-in with Fame webinar series that we offer at noon on the first Friday of every single month. So we hope that you'll take a look at that schedule, and I'll share that link to all of our future webinars in a moment. But we offer a variety of topics, not only college savings, we also provide information on financial aid and FAFSA completion, and a lot of topics focused on financial wellness. So we hope you'll take a look at the schedule. All of the webinars are recorded, including today's webinar. And so if for some reason you have to drop off or you want to share the recording with other staff or individuals that you might think would be interested, we will provide you with a link to the recording as well. So no need to take notes. You'll have all of the information available. As I said, Kate Levier is with us today. She is Director of Partnerships and Programs at the Alfond Scholarship Foundation, and Mary Pelletier, who is a college savings counselor at Fame. Also joining us to help field any technical questions that come through, we're really thrilled to have Cheryl Wilkinson. She is College Savings Program Operations and Outreach Officer at Fame. And Peter Boulay, who is College Savings Program Customer Success Officer. So as I said earlier, we have a lot of talent and expertise joining us on the webinar today. As we move through, if you have questions, what we recommend is that you use the Q&A feature in your Zoom down at the bottom. If you hover below, you'll see that Q&A option. You can go ahead and ask questions there. And as we move through the webinar, our speakers might pause and ask if there's any questions that we want to address. We may just answer them right in the Q&A, but please add your questions there. The chat feature is one that we'd rather you not use. You can chat with the host and panelists, but the Q&A is just a better way to field questions. And as always, we do record this, we make it available, and we're available after the fact for any questions that you may have. So don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us following the webinar. So with that, Kate, I am going to turn it over to you. I see you got your screen share working, and welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. You did a great job with all these fun French last names to have to pronounce. So, and I know that you can do mine from the UMaine hockey days.
Well, yes. We go way back with Levier, that's for sure.
Anyway, so hi everyone. My name is Kate Levier. As Mary said, I'm the Director of Partnerships and Programs from the Alfond Scholarship Foundation, and really excited to be here to talk to you all about how we work with Fame to promote the Alfond Grant, which I will get into a little bit more detail about. But I think this is really a nice way to see how the two organizations, while are separate organizations, really do collaborate very closely on this initiative. And I cannot see the chat or anything, so thank you to the folks that are kind of managing that, just so you know, if something does come up, I'm not ignoring anyone. So if you are not familiar with Harold Alfond and his legacy, just a really brief overview here. Mr. Alfond did First of all, he was a Maine businessman and philanthropist. He believed that all children deserve the opportunity to achieve higher education. And he knew that for some families, cost was really a barrier. Even just starting those aspirations for post-secondary education, the cost would overwhelm a lot of families in Maine. So one of the things that he did was to create this gift of a $500 Alfond grant, just to start families begin to think about and prepare for their child's future at the very start of their life. He really did believe that education could help transform lives. We are so unbelievably lucky in Maine to have this gift of $500 for every child born a Maine resident to be used for their education after high school. So I always really like to start just kind of honoring Mr. Alfond's legacy and the forethought that he had to have this gift. So the organizations that are involved with the Alfond Grant, so again, I'm with the Alfond Scholarship Foundation. Our job is really to kind of manage the Alfond Grant program and to get out there and talk to families about it, and to just share information about it, encourage aspirations. We have a lot of tools and resources that I'll even talk about that are on our website. But that's sort of our one program that we have here. We do receive all of our funding from the Harold Alfond Foundation. So that's really the big foundation that works with a lot of schools and other hospitals and other areas in Maine in their philanthropy. And then the Finance Authority of Maine. Obviously, we're here together today, so they're the quasi-state agency working with education and business opportunities, but they also help to administer the Alfond Grant program. So the Alfond funds are invested in a Next Gen 529 account, which FAME does administer. So again, we are two separate organizations that work together to raise the aspirations of Maine children. So I'm going to talk today about the Alfond Grant and how it can be used and ways that we can encourage additional savings. And then Mary will talk about Next Gen. So our model is pretty simple. Any child born a Maine resident starting January 1st, 2013, they automatically have $500 that's invested for their future. Again, it's invested in a Next Gen account. And then it was available on a more limited basis. So from 2008 to 2012, their $500 was awarded to children, but they had to open up a Next Gen account before the child turned 1 in order to receive that gift. The Harold Alfond Foundation was, looking at the number of families that open Next Gen accounts, and it wasn't every single family in Maine for various reasons. And said, you know what, let's remove that 1-year stipulation for the Next Gen account and just have this be for all children born Maine residents. So this again, another awesome slide. As of today, there is over $80 million that's been invested by ASF for more than 160,000 Maine children. Obviously, that number is growing every day. It's a wonderful thing for all of us to be a part of, for ASF, for FAME to be a part of, to be able to have this impact on this many children. But it's also really good that even if you're joining us today and you might not have a child with an Alfond grant, you likely have some child in your life in some capacity that has an Alfond grant, because again, Maine is relatively small. So to have 160,000 children with an Alfond grant is really a pretty broad reach. So how the grant works, again, it's invested at birth. It's invested by ASF for all eligible Maine babies. The idea is that it will hopefully grow alongside the child. It can be used for education after high school. So that's college, university, trade schools, certificate programs. It does not have to be used in Maine. It can be used in or out of Maine. Again, it's invested in a Next Gen 529, so there are stipulations around the uses of it, which Mary will also get into, I know, in her presentation. And then families, if they do want to save, and we encourage families to save what they can, when they can, for their child's future, they can't add directly to their Alfond grant, but they can open their own college savings account. A few other things just to know about the Alfond grant. Again, it can be used for big ticket items like tuition, room and board, books, supplies, sometimes computers. For this next bullet here, having until age 28 to use their Alfond grant. This is separate than what Mary will talk about with Next Gen. There's, anything that families might contribute to that. There's not an age usage limit. I just always want to make sure that's very, very clear. So with the Alfond grant and any earnings that may have accrued, grantees have until age 28 to use that. This is really because we couldn't just have, the money out there forever. I say out there like it's, floating around. But we did also want to give kids and students some time, so that essentially 10 years after they've completed high school, they have a chance to use this. So they may go on and go into the military and then decide to continue their education. They may have their full 4 years, let's say, paid for, but then they decide to go on to graduate school. So it gives them some time to use that. Currently, the Alfond grant does not count as an asset for any individuals who have to apply for means tested benefits, so like food stamps or something like that. And then another important point here is that if a child is born out of state, but the parents are Maine residents, when that child is born, that child does have the Alfond grant. So we're seeing a lot of hospitals that have closed their labor and delivery departments. Particularly in southern Maine, we've seen it really kind of on the border towns that border Maine and New Hampshire. We've seen a lot of hospitals close that department. So many families may be going to New Hampshire to have their child. That child still has an Alfond grant. And it's just really important for us to get that point across, because they may not hear about their child's Alfond grant. Oftentimes families hear about it. The first place is at the hospital, because we partner with a lot of hospitals to share that info. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that even if they're born out of state. And then we have a lot of information resources just to help families with their aspirations. So quickly here, how do families know about the value of their Alfond grant? 4 times a year, they do receive these quarterly statements that show the current value. Again, the Alfond, the $500 is invested in a 529 account that is invested in the stock market. So it does ebb and flow with the stock market. We always keep referring to it as $500, but like, for example, my daughter is 13 and her initial $500 Alfond grant, I actually just looked it up this morning so that I could have good, accurate information here, is currently worth $1,500. So in that 13 years, it has tripled, which is amazing. So again, we're always calling it the $500 grant, but for some children, it's really significantly more. And these statements are really important for them to see that change in value. Families can receive this electronically if they like, and then they can also use our website as a starting point to check the value of their Alfond grant. It will push you over to a website that's administered by FAME, again, because we work really closely with them and they handle the administration of the Alfond grant. Some of the other resources that we provide: you can sign up for our newsletter, you can update contact information on our website. Again, we have a really nice aspiration toolkit on there with interactive activities for families of all ages. So there's some really great information that's available on our website. I talked a little bit about partnerships as far as mentioning hospitals and sharing information with families, but there are 2.5 of us, because we have Caroline who works part-time for ASF. There are 2.5 of us that work at ASF, and again, over 160,000 children with an Alfond grant. We are completely outnumbered. That gap's getting wider every single day. So we work with a lot of partners just to share information with families about the Alfond grant. So even just all of you being on this call today, again, if you know a child in your life that likely has an Alfond grant, sharing that information is really important. So why should I share that info? What does this mean for Maine families? The Alfond grant does offer a really simple and clear message that someone believes in my child, they believe in my child's future. It also provides some real practical and aspirational benefits that can lead to, continued education, possibly a higher paying job, all sorts of great things. Um, there's also some research out there that shows that a child with a college savings account in their name, even if that only has, a small amount, a relatively small amount, they are 3 times more likely to go to college and 4 times more likely to complete. And then we do know that many of the jobs in the future will require some sort of education or training after high school. I know I keep, a lot of times we use the word college to mean really any sort of education or training after high school. So for any businesses that may be on the call today, just to learn a little bit more, there are some things that you can do as an employer to help share information about the Alfond Grant and NextGen, and just to encourage those aspirations for the children of your employee, or maybe even the grandchildren of your employees. So there's a way, you can always encourage and work with ASF and FAME to have employees make contributions to an education savings account using payroll deduction, which I'm sure Mary will talk about. Employers can add an incentive benefit to any employee who opens a college savings account. So maybe it's, you have an employee that's heading out on parental leave. And if they open up a college savings account, then you could do like a $50 match for it. Again, a really low cost, nice benefit that shows that you care about not only your employee, but your employee's family as well. And then we're always happy to have folks identified as champions that can share information and resources to employees about both the Alfond Grant and NextGen. And obviously asking folks to do some of this stuff, we're always happy to support you in that work. We provide communication templates and printed materials, electronic materials that can be shared with folks. We do a lot of these information sessions so that employees can just learn about both the Alfond Grant and NextGen. I know, having worked with Mary so much, I know how much FAME will support employees if they have questions or need any help or support opening accounts. And then we do recognize businesses as champions on our website. Really, the biggest difference here, we have these 3 levels, is the champion will help to facilitate payroll deduction, and a gold medal champion will provide some type of match for a college savings account. I'm going to just touch on this really briefly because I know Mary will get into this a little bit more. But again, if families do want to save, and like I said, we always encourage families to save what they can and when they can, they do have to open up their own savings account. They can't add directly to the Alfond Grant. All families should research what is the best option for them. The Alfond Grants are invested in a NextGen account. And if a family does choose to open a NextGen account, their statements that they get every quarter would show both the Alfond grant and the change in value for that, as well as any family contributions and any matching grants from FAME that they may be eligible for. Mary will go into all of this. And then again, just every child, the whole premise behind the Alfond Grant, especially making it available to all children born Maine residents, is that every child really does deserve a success story. And especially yours or the ones that are in your life. So I just love to always kind of pause on this and just show the different children that the Alfond Grant has touched. And then we are always here to help. Our email address is pretty simple. You can do the info@myalfondgrant.org if you have any questions, or I'm sure all of this will be shared after as well, and my contact information is on there as well. I'm going to stop sharing so that if there is anything, I can see what's going on because I couldn't before.
No questions yet, Kate, but I did add the link to the My Alfond Grant website.
Oh, thank
all
you.
of many of the resources that you mentioned, the ability to check your grant value. I put that link in there. So feel
Perfect.
free to check that out when you have a chance. And again, as a follow-up, we will send a recording with the follow-up contact information and the resource links as well. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mary Pelletier, who is going to talk with us about NextGen 529. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. And thank you to Kate for that really informative introduction to the Alfond Grant. So my title at Fame is a college savings counselor, and that essentially means that I get to go all over the state of Maine and explain what exactly is Next Gen 529 and how it fits into the overall picture of saving and paying for higher education. And so I have a few slides here for you guys. And in the slide deck that I have today, we are going to go over a quick introduction to what Next Gen 529 is, what's a 529 plan to begin with, and how that works. We are going to talk about some grants that are really great opportunities for Maine residents to take part in, and then some commonly asked questions around just saving for education in general. We're going to do some myth busting and then some other commonly asked questions. And so before I start any of that, I do want to share a few slides about the aspirational and financial impacts that saving and planning for higher education costs can have. And some of the stats here that I have to show you, the first one, it is related to the outcomes of higher education achievement and overall wages for those students that pursue those programs. And so we have the average earnings here from the National Center of Education Statistics of someone with a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, and then a high school diploma. And as you can see, those who attain a bachelor's degree are almost earning double what the average earnings of someone with a high school diploma is. And then there is still a significant bump with that associate's degree. And so that's telling us that it truly does pay to pursue something like a higher education program. This is probably my favorite slide in this whole slide deck, which is funny because Kate also mentions this statistic in her own presentation, but I think it's worth saying twice that the studies show that if a child has just a couple $100s in their name for higher education, they are 3 times more likely to enroll in that program and 4 times more likely to graduate. And so, throughout the slide deck, I'm going to provide some examples, some, achievements, perhaps benchmarks that you can strive to achieve with your savings. But this speaks to the fact that every dollar truly does count towards that child's success. And then lastly, every dollar that you save with any type of savings account, but Next Gen 529, of course, is a dollar that you don't have to take out in interest in loans and pay back with interest later. And so we have a chart here to illustrate what that might look like. And the same amount of money that's being paid for education costs, so $18,000, and what that looks like if it's saved over a period of time, in this scenario, 15 years, and earning some sort of return because it's invested, or versus the red bar, money that is borrowed in student loans and then of course paid back in interest. And so as you can see, that can make a significant impact in the overall amount of money that's being paid for education costs. Okay, so I'm going to move into talking a little bit about 529 plans and what is Next Gen 529. So Next Gen is classified as what we call a 529 investment plan. And what that means is that our guidelines, our regulations are outlined in Section 529 of the IRS tax code. So we follow all of those. Every state has their own version of a 529 plan. You might see them with other financial institutions. And Next Gen just happens to be administered in the state of Maine through FAME's office. And because of that, we get to offer some really great incentives for Maine accounts, which I'm going to go over in a few slides. So 529 plans are investment products. And as with any investment products, there are varying levels of risk. And a few other things in regards to the tax treatment. These types of accounts can grow tax-free earnings if you are using them for qualified higher education expenses, and I do go over what that is in a few slides. But it can be an advantage to you if you're looking for a type of account to, grow some of those tax-free earnings. With NextGen 529, you can pursue opening an account with a financial advisor, and that would be opening what's called a NextGen Select account. And you can go into the financial advisor's office, open it with them, and they can be in the driver's seat and helping you make those investment choices. But in fact, we have a lot of accounts that are what's called our direct series accounts, where the customer or the account owner is in the driver's seat. They go on our website and they open an account independently, and they use some of the tools that we have in place on our website to help them make the best educated choice as far as investments go. So moving on here to talk about some more advantages and benefits of 529 plans and NextGen 529. We talked about that tax-free growth, of course, so the earnings in a 529 plan are tax-free as long as they're used for higher education expenses. But Mainers also are eligible for a $1,000 tax deduction on their state taxes. So if you're saving to a 529 plan, regardless of if you are the owner or not, you can write that off as a tax deduction if up to $1,000 of saving. In addition to those tax treatments, 529 plans and NextGen 529 are very flexible as far as how and when you can save. You can do one-off contributions, you can contribute via check or linking a bank account, direct deposit, and it can be as little or as much as fits your budget and lifestyle, because you might be in a position one year to contribute X amount dollars, and that might change. So you can make those decisions to best fit your pocketbook and in your savings goals. It's very easy to use NextGen 529. We have a lot of resources and education in place to help folks use the accounts effectively and as successfully as possible. And so we have a great customer service team. For instance, at FAME, we have several customer service folks that you can call and talk to and get assistance. And then there's also things like what we're doing today, where we present and help people understand the program. I'm going to skip give a gift because I have a whole slide about that, but just know that it's very easy to save and give a gift to a 529 plan. And then lastly, these types of accounts are built for higher education of many facets and many types. And so while my title at FAME is a college savings counselor, and the turn of phrase for these types of accounts are college savings accounts, it really is for many different higher education pathways. Because when you're opening these accounts for, say, an infant or even just a young child, you don't know what the future might hold for them. And so these accounts are specifically designed so that you can have flexibility in how you use them, and as you understand that child and what their future is going to look like. So you can use NextGen 529 accounts to pay for things like trade schools, community college, online school, tech school, anywhere that it is eligible for federal financial aid. And that's a very long list. For instance, cosmetology school is one that tends to surprise people. And then in addition to using these accounts to pay for things like tuition and fees, you can also use the accounts to pay for things like room and board or rent if they're living off campus. You can use the accounts to pay for things like supplies or PPE, steel-toed boots if they're going in the trades. Many different ways to make the account work for you. And then lastly, there are some outliers that do not necessarily fall under the higher education umbrella. And you can use NextGen 529 accounts contribution and earnings for things like K through 12 school tuition. You can use it for student loan repayment up to $10,000 per beneficiary. And lastly, you can roll over a 529 plan into a Roth IRA, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about at the end. And so we tell folks, it's never too early and it's never too late to consider using a college savings account, NextGen 529 in particular, for a tool to meet your savings goals. And so, for instance, if I myself wanted to pursue a graduate program, I could save with NextGen 529 and use those funds to help myself go through that program. So even, I used some stats about and examples about saving for an infant and a young child, but I do think that this can fit into a plan of a family who's saving for an older child or saving for themselves. And there's lots of ways to make the account work for you. Okay, so talking a little bit more about giving a gift, particularly the gift of education by contributing to someone's NextGen 529 account. Our website has really great tools to help you do this in a fun and engaging way. We have gift cards that are digital that you can purchase online through the third-party site Gift of College. And we also have some physical ones in select CVS locations across the state. If you want to contribute via check, you can use our contribution coupon where we have instructions to do so on our website. And then lastly, some other fun stuff. So a nice story I like to share on this slide is I had a coworker who worked at Fame who no longer works for Fame, but at the time she had a child, and for her child's first birthday, she asked her family and friends, in lieu of a gift, we have enough toys, enough clothes, please consider contributing to my child's NextGen account. And she was able to collect $800 that day for her child and her future. So that's a really great story that I like to share, and something that can easily be done in a lot of different families. So I'm not going to go over estate planning benefits today in depth, but just know that 529 plans are an attractive option if that is something you're planning in the overall picture of your finances. And we always encourage, as this piece and any other piece I talk about, talking to a tax professional, a financial advisor, and making choices that best fit you. Okay. Now might be a good time to pause if there's any questions in our Q&A that I happen to not be able to see myself. So are there any questions before I move on to grants?
We had one question, Mary, and it was, what happens to the NextGen funds if the child did not end up using it? Thank you.
That is a great question, and I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger because I have a slide exactly for that. So just know that it's coming. Okay. So that was our only question?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll move on here to talk about the grants for Maine residents. So there's 4 that we're going to go over: the Alfond Grant, the Initial Matching Grant, the Automated Funding Grant, and the Next Step Matching Grant. So a few things to know about grants and as a whole. These are for Maine accounts, and Maine NextGen 529 accounts are defined as either having an account owner or an account beneficiary that's a Maine resident. So a more concrete example is grandma and grandpa live in the state of Maine. Grandma opens a 529 account for her grandson that lives in Massachusetts. She can collect grants on his behalf because she is a resident of Maine. So that's just one way that works. In addition to that, the grants themselves are limited to 1 per beneficiary. So there are times where a beneficiary might have multiple NextGen accounts, depending on the family's makeup, et cetera, their personal preference. Only 1 account receives the grants I'm talking about. And it's whichever account's contributed to first. Next, these grants are awarded automatically. So we have a great team at Fame that actually does that work of awarding the grants, as well as the Alfond Grant, where that happens automatically for Maine babies. And then lastly, this is true for all of the grants, including the Alfond Grant. They are intended to be used to be sent directly to the qualified higher education institution the student is enrolled in. And so what that means is that I talked about some of the miscellaneous expenses you could use your NextGen account for: steel-toed boots, cutting shears, or etc., even pencils and paper. Those are going to be for your contributions and earnings in your NextGen 529 account. So we tell people who use NextGen 529, use your grant funds first. Pay off the tuition bill that you have that was sent to you by the school so that you're not in a position where you have leftover grants and nowhere to send them. And another piece that I want to add here is that when you open a NextGen 529 account, the account is set up in a way where it is very clear to you how much money you are saving and any earnings accrued, how much your Alfond grants valued, and then any other grants that you've collected. It's very separated out so that you know exactly how much to send to the school to use your grant funds. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this because Kate did such an excellent job already. The only piece I'll add in addition to what she's already shared is that if you're opening up a NextGen 529 account for an Alfond grantee, the NextGen account, if it is the first one opened, will actually link to the child's Alfond grant. And so you can open your phone, look at the app and look at how your savings is doing and how the Alfond grant saving is doing, and all at the same place. It can make things very easy and help you get a very clear picture of what your savings looks like. So next is the initial matching grant. This is awarded to accounts that are a main account and deposit $25 and point blank period, that's it. Except for Alfond grantees. You have to open the account before they turn 1 to receive this particular grant award. But for instance, again, I'll use myself as an example. If I open a NextGen account for me and put in $25, I would be eligible for this $100 initial matching grant. Next is the automated funding grant. This is awarded for making auto contributions. As little as $5 a month can make you eligible for this. And after the 6th automated contribution, whether that's through your checking account, your savings account, a payroll deduction, you are awarded the $100 initial, automated funding grant. And then lastly, this is probably the largest grant incentive that's available, a 30% match on your contributions via the Next Step Matching Grant. And so what this looks like is whatever you save in your NextGen account over the course of the year, the state of Maine matches that 30% up to a $300 grant award. And so there are some calculations here to help us kind of decipher what that looks like. If I put in $300 in my NextGen account this year, I will see a $100 grant in 2025. And of course, the benchmark is $1,000 to get that full match every year. And we are uniquely positioned, being at the 1st of November, to open a NextGen account, get it set up and funded before the hustle and bustle of the holidays, and receive a Next Step Matching Grant in the new year. So if it's something that you've had on your list or something that maybe you're now looking and interested in doing, it's a great time to do it now so that you can get this year's matching grant. Okay, so this next slide here is, those were all the grants that we have available to Maine accounts. So I do want to talk about how they fit into the larger picture of investing versus savings and how that can, you can make the most out of those types of opportunities. And so this slide is a comparison of different savings vehicles and taking advantage of things like a match. And it's illustrating $1,000 a year in savings for 20 years. The first bar here, that's mostly red, is just a traditional savings account that you open with a regular bank, and the interest rate that might be attached to that savings account. So there is interest accrued, but when you're comparing something like saving in a savings account versus investing, where you have the opportunity for capital gains and compound interest, you see that you can really make the most out of the same amount of money being saved. Now, these are all a hypothetical scenario where we use the average rate of return. Some years it's lower, some years it's more, but you can see that it can potentially beat out something like a savings account. And then lastly, comparing that to NextGen 529. And the most unique thing about NextGen for Maine accounts is those matching grants. And so same amount of money being saved, same calculation for compound interest and capital gains from the amount of money being saved, plus the grants on top of that. And so, doubling and then some on the amount of money that you're saving, and how that can really make a difference for someone's future. Oop, skipped a slide. Oh, I'm moving on to commonly asked questions now. I'm glad I went back to that one. Okay, so we had this question in the chat and I'm gonna go over it now. What happens to my next gen account and my money that I'm saving if my child decides not to go to college? And you have several different options available to you. The accounts have become even more flexible over the years on how you can use them. The first option is you just keep the account and you keep it open and you give that student time to decide what path they might take. And so Kate mentioned the Alfond Grant does have an expiration date of age 28, but the money that you're saving in a Next Gen 529 account, the matching grants you're collecting, do not have an expiration date. So it is totally fine to give that child or that student a few gap years or more to decide what they want to do, and then have that as a fallback to get them started in a program once they decide. We have seen along the way that like more and more people are needing workforce training to be able to enter fields that they are interested in. And so since there's a lot of flexibility in how you can use these accounts, it might be a good idea to let it mature for a while before pulling it out. So another option that you have available to you is you can transfer your contributions and earnings to another qualified family member. And so that is a sibling, a spouse, yourself, a niece or nephew. The list is quite expansive and you have a lot of options as far as where you could transfer the funds. And it's important to know that that is exclusive to contributions and earnings. So if you decide to transfer those funds and close out your account, you will be voiding out any grants you've collected. And then next we have paying off student loans, which I briefly mentioned. You can pay off student loans up to $10,000 per beneficiary. And one way that can play out is, let's say you have the money in one account and the beneficiary there decides to go to community college and they have extra money left over. You could roll that to another student who's going to med school and help that student pay off some of their student loans. So just one example of the way you could use the account to that advantage. And then lastly, the option here that I mentioned as well is that since 2023, you can now roll over a 529 plan into a Roth IRA retirement account. And so there are some limitations there. I encourage you to talk to a tax professional or a financial advisor before making any decisions. But it is a great option available to you if you know that student won't be using the account for higher ed or they have money left over. And even if they decide not to go to school, hopefully everybody gets to retire and you can help them do that. And then last but not least, if you decide I am not going to do any of those things, I'm going to take my money and run, that is totally okay too. You can pull out your contributions and earnings, but just be aware that if you're going to use them for a non-qualified purchase, then you are going to receive a tax penalty on the earnings, not the contributions, but the earnings at 10%, and that is going to be eligible for state and federal income tax as well. Okay, and then another question we get all the time is, how does savings impact my students' financial aid eligibility? And while I can't go too in depth on that topic today, there is a few things that I can give you to keep in mind. 529 plans are considered an asset on the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. And so an asset is things like savings in the bank, the value of your, if you have a vacation home, or if any investments you might have, all of those things are considered assets. And the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, is going to take those into account. If they're owned by the parent, then there's lots of variables that can change this, but at most 5.6% of your assets will be considered in the FAFSA. And there's lots of reasons why that would be less. If they're owned by the student, however, it is a higher rate percent. But something that had changed in the last year or so is that if the 529 plan is owned by a grandparent, then you don't have to report that as an asset at all. And so that is a good way to maybe offset any of those worries if the account's owned by a grandparent. And then lastly, when it comes to the student aid index, the calculation that is provided after you file the FAFSA and helps determine your financial aid eligibility, the biggest contributing factor for that is the family's income. And so you see that that's going to cause the biggest shifts as far as this SAI, and then savings is always going to have a lesser impact and sometimes no impact at all. Okay, so this is a good time to pause again for questions. If you want to put them in the chat and then Mary can read them out, that would be great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mary. One question in the Q&A, and you or Kate can address this, but I do think it's an area of confusion. And probably when I talked about Alfond powering NextGen at the beginning, it didn't help in that confusion. The question is, so how does it work with the Alfond grant value growing, but you use the $500, meaning the $500 Alfond grant, to open a 529 account? Or am I understanding this wrong? So could one of you just talk about how those funds are kind of invested in parallel or separately? Just talk about that a little bit to help folks understand.
Yes, yeah. So consider the Alfond grant and that $500 that's invested as earmarked for all of these Maine babies that are born. So the money itself is actually owned by the Alfond Scholarship Foundation, and parents receive updates. One way they get to receive updates is if they open a NextGen 529 account, and they can look at it on their portal. They can get the app on their phone and see how it works, but it is entirely segmented as separate. So while you can open up your NextGen account with no initial deposit, you'll see the Alfond grant link and you'll get to see it in all the same ways I mentioned. That is still owned by the Alfond Scholarship Foundation, and then you can use it once disbursement time comes around. Is there anything I'm missing, Kate? I think I hit all the points.
No, I mean, I think essentially, and I'm definitely simplifying this a lot more than what really happens behind the scenes, but because, it is an account that's owned by us, but it is sort of like Mary said, earmarked for that child. If they do use it to open up an NextGen account, they get linked kind of behind the scenes. Again, that's totally simplifying it a lot, but they just get linked up. So that's how you can use it to open the account. That's how you can see it on your statement, is that linkage, but they're still separate.
Right. And there's a lot of really great justifications for doing this. One of them is that if a family is not in a position to save right away, they can establish their NextGen account, don't have to put any initial money in. And then like as the child has a birthday or Christmas and parents give, I talked about this with a friend the other day. They got random checks from their grandparents and they didn't know what to do with it. They can put that in their NextGen account that's now opened and just start that savings alongside that Alfond grant. Great. Any other questions, Mary?
Yes, so we had a question about, can a NextGen account owned by me, is what the individual said, be rolled over into another 529 account owned by my son's grandparent? And this came through in the chat, not the Q&A, so I don't know if Cheryl or Peter saw it, and if either of them want to chime in, or if Mary, Kate, if you want to weigh in on this one. And then I have a couple more questions that have come in after that.
I'll take a crack at it, and then I might volley it over to Cheryl after. But I believe that that is possible. There is just some steps that are involved, such as changing the ownership of the account. You can change the account owner of your NextGen account, and then a rollover you would initiate after that point. It just would involve some steps. And Cheryl, am I missing anything there?
No, you are not. That is correct. And it would be helpful to know more information if they're both accounts that live, if they're both NextGen accounts, or is one with a different plan. It's important to call out that the matching grants cannot roll out of the NextGen plan. They have to stay within our plan.
Correct, yes. And if you're changing beneficiaries of that plan, you cannot roll over matching grants, or any of the grants rather, from one beneficiary to another. Great. What else do you got, Mary?
So this is a good one. How do I know if I opened a 529 account? So if somebody opened an account, they maybe don't have online access. They kind of opened it, but didn't really monitor. What's the best way for an individual to figure that out?
Yeah, give us a call at the Finance Authority of Maine, or you can send us an email. So the NextGen 529 website is a great resource too. We have a customer service call line there that you can call to confirm or deny if you have a NextGen 529 account, or you can shoot us an email. We need some identifying information that we'll ask of you, and then we can look it up and confirm for you if that account exists.
Great. And then the last one, I think what the individual is asking is, can I use unused NextGen funds for my retirement or my child retirement? So I know you addressed that whole slide around what happens if you don't use it, Mary, but any experts on the webinar want to add to that?
Yeah, so you can roll over your NextGen 529 account into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. And this change is fairly new, so updates are ongoing at the federal level. I'll let Peter and Cheryl chime in with any other information they have, but I always encourage folks to talk to a tax professional before making those changes.
Yeah, that's correct, Mary. And we always advise folks to read the program description. There are some very detailed stipulations that you have to meet in order to roll money from a 529 into an Roth IRA. So definitely review the program description and talk with your tax professional.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, one of the big stipulations is the account has to have been open for 15 years. So these would be great for, opening accounts now for the younger children. But if you have an account already and it hasn't been open for 15 years, you can't roll into a loan. So that's probably, there are other stipulations, but that's the biggest one, is the account has to be open for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. And you still have to follow all of the mandates of as far as contribution limits with Roth IRAs. So this is not a vehicle to kind of bolster your IRA with extra funds. You still have that, you would only be able to max it out at the same rate. So great. Okay. Well, if those are all the questions, I do have just a couple more slides and then we'll wrap things up. But I do want to leave people with a couple nuggets of how do you get started, right? Like Mary and Kate did an excellent job. I'm ready to go open my NextGen account. What do I do? So the first thing you do is you're going to prepare some information. So you're going to track down things like your social security numbers, date of births, and some other basic financial information. So things like, what is our AG, annual gross income, AGI, how much do we got investments already, things like that, so that you're ready to go when you open the application. And then after that, you're going to visit nextgenforme.com. So there you're going to find our program descriptions for our NextGen direct accounts and our select accounts. You're going to review those. You're going to decide, okay, this is right for me. And then you can open a NextGen direct series account on our website, or you can use our list and pursue one of the financial advisors there to open a select account. if anyone has any questions, you can also find our customer service information, contact information there. But this is me right here. You can reach out to me and I can do my best to answer any questions you have. And I think that wraps us up here. So I appreciate everyone on the call, and Kate and Mary and Cheryl, Peter, Mila, for participating with us, helping us out, and I'll pass it back to Mary.
Thank you, Mary. There was a last question in the chat about, is there anyone that I can speak to get advice on my specific situation in college savings? And what I would recommend is that you go to faymaine.com contact. You'll find Mary and our other college savings counselor, Karen, their information and their links to set up a meeting with them. You can meet with either one of them. Mary's email address is right there as well. So definitely reach out if you have questions about your situation. We're happy to help. And you can talk via email, phone, or as I said, there are virtual sessions available with Mary and Karen as well. So with that, we will conclude for today. We really appreciate that you joined us, and nearly all of you stayed on for the full hour, so we appreciate that. I want to just highlight our webinar that's coming up in December. We're really excited about that. Mila Tappan, our College Access and Outreach Manager, will be presenting on December 6th at noon. And the session is Getting the Most for Your Money, Financial Aid, and the Return on Investment of Higher Education. So we hope that you'll join us. And again, as always, we record those webinars and they're available on FAME's YouTube channel if you can't make it live. So, but at a minimum, register and we'll send you the link automatically. So thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Mary and Kate and Cheryl and Peter and all of you. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. Thanks a bunch, everyone.